I think there is a big, data economy coming up on top of this mobile revolution that we went through, because now data is going to be exchanged between entities and valued at a certain amount, in terms of insights and actionable insights that will be driven. But what will happen in the future, and what we as technology companies are working on, is to create some control for the user over their data, and even possibly, it's tricky to say it, but some form of monetization for them. Today, whenever you give away some information, in fact, you're getting some form of value in return. It could be convenience, or it could be sometimes exposure or something like this. So how do you put value to that, and how do you give the user a control mechanism on where can I stop that and where can I restart it,
Advice, actually, it's a tough question, as said. But my advice to the end user actually is to look around and look at the horizon of this business. Actually, it's if you are, let's say, an owner of an industry, a factory, let's say, there is a lot of optimization coming out of this business. So the traditional business is always a product line of manufacturing something. So humans in general, they will definitely have a human error in a product line. So when we automate throughout the Internet of Things, definitely the optimization of the cost and the time efficiency as well is definitely a solution for the customer. That is the enterprise side. A lot of example that we encourage and induce the customer to look around and adopt the services. Machine to machine, the old name of the Internet of Things, is also the tracking, the very traditional tracking services. This is a huge cost saving for the government, for the fleet management. Even on the consumer side, when you look at the very simple services of the consumer side, like this, the Fitbit, what you mentioned, Jean-Francois, it's a healthy thing, the patient relationship with the hospital. So expanding the horizon of the customer will give a lot of benefits from an enterprise and consumer perspective, and it is sometimes a taboo thing to a lot of customers, or the understanding of the technology is not very well understood, actually. So we encourage to look around and see the benefits out of this service, from safety, security, and finally better decision making. And this is very important when it comes to have a real-time analytical tools showing you everything that around you as a business, as a consumer. So a better decision making will come out of this technology.
A couple of ideas, Jawad. I think we need users. We need users because the framework for the development is not standardized yet. So during a period of time, this will be a kind of a jungle where the fittest will survive. And for that, the return from the user experience is very important. So we need users, and we know that they will be very demanding, because now people, in terms of customer experience, of experience, are yes, very impatient. If your scale do not pair with your smartphone in less than 10 seconds, then you go and look at something else. So we need users. We will have early adopters as in any cycle, any industry. Service providers have to look, and with the Internet of Things, you will have the tools to adapt quicker, because the return through data analytics will give you a lot of information of what your customers are doing with what you are providing to them. I will also say that at corporate level, there are big savings that can be done quickly. If, in fact, just one example of what we are doing internally, of course, we are tracking our vehicles. We are starting tracking our assets. We are also using protocols to check into the routers of our customers and do some managed services. So at corporate level, there are also a lot of things that can be done.
So from a user experience, a consumer and an enterprise view, I think consumers are really key about making sure data privacy, data security. And I think that's been covered by my colleagues, but I'll go a little bit deeper into the enterprise side. Looking at the user of the enterprise CIO, there are multiple challenges. On the one hand, as you start to use IoT, you start to use cloud computing platforms, you want to get the cost and the scale of the Amazon Web Services, the Google Clouds of the world. But yet, on the other hand, you're concerned about privacy. And so if you're going to make an investment in cloud, are you going to look at data sovereignty, data locality as well? And how do you find that balance? And so these are the technologies that I think the vendors are beginning to address, is trying to figure out the balance between data locality and sovereignty, as well as pushing workloads that are specific to burstable traffic into the cloud. As an example, if you're running large analytics in your company and you need massive amounts of database space, you can push that onto a service provider cloud, onto the Amazon cloud, and then burst back. And this way, maintain your cost structure. And then the last point about data visualization, which is absolutely critical to tie into your business process. And that's how, if you're an enterprise, you're going to unlock the value of $19 trillion that I spoke about, is how do you take information from the network, from all the different sources that come through IoT, and wrap that into a business process that changes behavior and hence changes a business process based on that comes in.
Thank you. Darren? Sorry.
Just quickly, I agree with our first panelist. I think we're unfortunately the wrong generation to ask about how this is going to impact the youth, because they will decide how it's going to impact them. But interestingly for me, I think it becomes a social question. Fundamentally, how is society going to change? I read a report recently about the Fitbits to say, you realize that people can now track you through your Fitbit. And I just laughed and thought, well, they can track you through your smartphone. If you have a pocket, you have a smartphone, don't worry about your Fitbit. But it's just the youngsters of society today don't follow the same rules that we did. Their use of Facebook, their use of social media, they don't really worry about the security aspects. And as an enterprise, of course, we do, but the consumers don't. And they live in a different generation. And I think it's our challenge to understand how we put some technology and security in there without them feeling that technology and security is actually disabling the way they want to use that technology and that data. So I think, as I said, it will be not for us to decide. I think our job is to facilitate. And I think the next 2 generations will really determine how this changes society's model.
Thank you. Darren, keep the microphone, because this way we'll take the last question from the other side. But now there's a bit of housekeeping. I need my friend Santino to continue moderating the panel, because I need to go and receive Her Royal Highness for the official inauguration of the conference. But we've covered governments, regulators, we've covered users. Now the question is, what is a wish list for operators, what's required for operators? But then we'll take it from right to left this time, and I hand over to my friend Santino Seguta from Deloitte & Touche. Thank you. So, Darren, please.
So I think we covered it slightly earlier. Are operators ready? And actually, I'm not sure we are, to your point. I'll give you a very brief example. So if you look at one of the access mediums, of course, is video. Much more use of video. Now, unless you deploy 4G and 5G as it comes forward, actually that user experience isn't necessarily great. So as a provider, as a service provider in this case, we have to ensure that our technology enables actually what the consumer wants. And in some cases it doesn't. And to Jean-Francois' point, a consumer today waits 2 seconds. If something doesn't work, they've moved on. And that's our challenge, to actually make the technology as good as the kind of the brain works these days. So for us as a mobile network provider at core, we have to ensure that 4G and 5G, as it comes along, is sufficient, and the size of the bandwidth is sufficient, because data usage has gone up exponentially year on year on year. We never thought as service providers, you know, a 2 meg used to be a very big pipe, an STM1 was huge. Now you're seeing that kind of thing hanging out of households. It's amazing. So we've got a big job in keeping up with the technology and the commercial model that supports that technology, actually.